Good morning. A greeting to the missionary Miguel Benblez Marin and all the ministers, brothers and sisters gathered there in Tinaquillo, Cojedes State in Venezuela, and to all those who are connected through the satellite Amazonas and Eurostat 8. Today, Saturday, 28th of December of this year, 2024. You may take your seats if you don't mind. It is truly a great blessing and a privilege to be able to greet all of you and to wish you a prosperous year 2025. Today is already the last Saturday of this year, 2024, and tomorrow is the last Sunday. We still have a few days left for this year, 2024, where we expect great blessings from behalf of the Lord. In the message that Dr. William Soto Santiago preached to us, which tells us in the message the mysteries and the blessings contained in the evangelization and in the 10th vision at the last day, which was preached on Tuesday, 31st of July of 2007 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Dr. William Soto Santiago tells us, says, remember that the seventh seal is like a rocket. It explodes at a certain height, and then it explodes higher, and then higher the explosion, the farther away it can be seen. You see, it is exploding at a height that is seen only in a certain area. Then, much more higher, you can see from that area that was seen, plus the area that is now seen above. In other words, visibility is added higher and higher, more and more groups see it. And also 5 stars come out, and one of them explodes. See? Thus, those explosions will show different manifestations that will emerge that pertain to the seventh seal. In the book of the seventh seal on page 465, there it tells us what our brother William is telling us here. Brother Branham says, it's just like firing a rocket into the air. He writes Christ. And that rocket explodes here and it goes up. And then explodes again. And then on the right he writes, the Son of Man equals the seventh seal, fifth Elijah, second Moses, and second Jesus. It puts out 5 stars. One of those stars makes an explosion. Then writes Elijah, blows out 5 stars from it. And then one of them stars, he writes Moses, explodes and blows out 5 stars from it. See? It fades on out. That's the seventh seal. It just ends the time for the world. It ends the time for this. It ends the time for that. It ends the time for this. It ends the time. Everything just ended up on that seventh seal. Now, how is he going to do it? That's what we don't know, isn't it? We do not know. It's even the time for all things and the ushering in of the millennium. And there he writes introduction. Now notice how the seventh seal, being in a threefold manner, Because the Son of Man comes with his angels, there is the ministry of Jesus, of Moses and Elijah, which in the book of Seals he tells us on page 465 in the English version. It says, "And now as I stand in the platform tonight, I had the revelation that revealed it's in a threefold manner that I will speak to you by God's help of a fold of it." And then let's go over that. First, here is the revelation to begin what I want to tell you, what it is. What happens is, those 7 thunders that he had and was forbidden to write, and there he writes 7 thunders. That's what the mystery is, laying behind those 7 consecutive thunders. And there he writes the second coming. The 7th seal is the second coming of Christ. That's what the mystery is, laying behind the 7 consecutive thunders roaring out. Now see how that threefold manner is the mystery of the 7th seal. In other words, God operating the ministry of Jesus, of Moses and Elijah in one man. Now, on this same page we were reading, where he spoke to us about the 7th seal as a rocket, which is on page 465. Continuing there where we had stopped, it says, "Notice the breaking of this seal was so great that heaven was hushed by it in silence for the space of half an hour." Now, is it great? What is it? It was hushed heavens. There wasn't thing moved for half hour. Now, a half hour might not be long if you are having a good time. But in the suspense of between death and life, it seemed like a millennium. And there he writes, half an hour of silence as of death. He drew a cornerstone in the Star of David. And he writes, millennium suspense. We have already read all these portions. Now he says, it was so great, Jesus never mentioned it. None of the rest of them. John couldn't even write of it. No, he was forbidden to write here. See, this just, he didn't write it, but this is silence. There he writes, half an hour. And the 24 elders that stood before God there, harping with the harps, they quite playing the harps, and angels hushed their singing in heaven. Think, the holy cherubims and seraphims that I just saw in the temple with six sets and 3 sets of wings there, 2 over his face and 2 over his feet flying, and he day and night they were singing, "Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." And even then they walked in, coming to the temple, the post-temple moved with their presence. And there he writes Revelation 11, 19 and 15. And these holy seraphims hushed up. Angels quit singing, aha, whew, flying in the presence of God, singing, "Holy, holy, holy." They shut up. No angels singing, no praises, no altar service, no nothing. There was silence, hushed deadly silence in heaven for half an hour. There he draws silence for half an hour. And all the host of heaven was in silence for this half an hour when the 7th seal mystery in the book of redemption was broke open. Do you remember when he said that the half hour had not yet started, but it would begin? And you notice that half an hour corresponds to the dispensation of the kingdom. So therefore, in many messages, he told us about what the dispensation of the kingdom would be, the age of the cornerstone, and everything that would be taking place at that time. And also the Reverend William Branham spoke of him taking the title deed, bringing it to the earth in his hand, open, and giving it to a man, and him changing from the lamb to the lion, and all that. But you notice, all he was bringing was the revelation of what would be at that time, when that would happen. So also our brother William, he was telling us and showing us what it would be and how his coming would be. And he showed by the scripture the entire fulfillment of the seventh seal and how that mystery was going to unfold in the midst of the church bride, which he would come as a thief in the night. He would come in a way that many didn't expect. And he would come in a way in which the same thing that had happened in the time of Jesus would take place in a construction worker. When he said, what if God fulfills his coming in a construction worker too? Many would miss it, even the very believers of the message. But for the elect, they would know that mystery and they would receive it because they would be seeing the one behind that instrument, the one behind that veil of flesh, which is the fulfillment of the angel who was different from the rest, the fulfillment of the coming of the Son of Man with his angels to bring them the faith to be transformed and raptured. The chosen one who will be transformed and taken to the marriage supper of the Lamb is the one who would receive his coming and receive the blessings of his coming. The one who will not be transformed will not receive it, will not even believe the fulfillment of his coming. As simple as that. Now notice, he continues saying, and all the host of heaven was silent for this half hour when this seventh seal mystery is in the book of redemption was broke open. Think of it. But it's broke. The Lamb breaks it. You know what? They were awed by it. I believe they didn't know. There it was. They just stopped. Why? What is it? And there he writes, reverential fear. He writes reverential fear. Now look, this seventh seal, which has been announced since Genesis. In other words, the seventh seal, what it says there in the book of the seals, it says, now the 8th chapter only reveals the sin of the seventh seal, where nothing else is revealed now. Nothing is not revealed in the seventh seal. Now has nothing to do with the 7th chapter of Revelation. It's revealing the seventh seal is perfectly mute. And if I only had time, I will try a few places to show you. This seventh seal is spoke of all the way from Genesis. And there he writes the second coming of Christ, and to the left, this above where it says seventh seal, and on the left he writes the seventh seal is announced from Genesis and in the other seals. And also on the right hand he writes from Genesis the seventh seal is announced. And also he writes without words. I'm on page 448 in the book of seals. He continues saying, these seals moved right up. Couldn't you remember? This morning bringing these things up, and watch tonight bringing them up. And you find out when it gets to that seventh seal, she cuts off. Because the seventh seal, you notice further on, he said that it's the end of the vials, the end of the trumpets, and he says, the short paragraph before the one we read from 465. It starts at the bottom there, and he says, everything runs out in the seventh seal. And there he writes, leftover time, Moses and Elijah. Notice, it's the end of the church, it's the end of the seals, the end of the trumpets, the end of the vials, and even the ushering in of the millennium. That's on the seventh seal. Now notice, the seventh seal ends or brings to the end the dispensation of grace and begins the dispensation of the kingdom. In other words, it introduces the millennium, being in these earthly bodies. All the work that God is carrying out in these final days is the work of the seventh seal. And it is a work that you notice as it goes up, it goes on increasing, the work is becoming clearer and clearer, and it begins to work fast with a group, which is what we are reading there in the message of our brother William Soto Santiago, titled The Mysteries and Blessings Contained in the Evangelization and the 10th Vision at the Last Day. There he says, and he continues saying where we had stopped. So those explosions will show different manifestations that will emerge, that pertain to the seventh seal. Let's say the explosion for the bride. See? It has exploded for the bride. How? In the revelation of what his coming is, giving the rapturing faith to the bride, the one who will be raptured, the one who will be transformed. The bride knowing him at his coming with a new name. Then he says, the explosion for the foolish virgins. See? And it's already interlacing that explosion as well. He continues saying, the explosion for the foolish virgins, the explosion for the world, and for the Jews, including all of them. All of that is also interlacing, because the third pole is for all groups. All groups will listen. Those who have not heard yet, the groups of the bride, of the foolish, of the lost ones, of the 144,000, all will hear the voice of the Son of Man, the voice of the Lord at his coming, because in the third pole they all have to recognize him. Some recognize him for transformation, others recognize him and will have to give their lives in the Great Tribulation, and others recognize him for the condemnation. You see, each one will recognize him and will receive that for which they have already been preordained, for those blessings or those curses, because he comes with blessing and with a curse. Blessing for those who receive him and curse for those who reject him. Let's say the explosion for the bride, the explosion for the foolish virgins, the explosion for the world, for the Jews, including all of them. In other words, it will cover everything, all humanity, the whole world. But it has to, at every moment that an explosion arises, a work or a labor arises, where that labor will be linked to the seventh seal. Notice how the seventh seal has different phases, different work in impacting the entire planet Earth, the heavens and the earth as well. You notice it impacts heaven because what was taking place there in heaven for so many years, thousands of years, that ceased. The things that were taking place in heaven ceased to take place. There we see heaven being impacted by the seventh seal, and the earth being impacted at his coming in and through that work. You notice it is impacting the groups, all the groups, and the least or the most will always end up listening to that voice, either to receive a blessing or to receive a curse. We have seen the work of the seventh seal at the end of time. That has been our topic in this short sharing on this occasion. The work of the seventh seal at the end of time. May God bless you and keep you, and may you continue to have a happy day full of God's blessings. And tomorrow we'll be seeing each other in tomorrow's activity. Try to arrive earlier. We are going to try to start a little before 10 a.m. because tomorrow's message is a bit longer and we want to make a good use of it that day. So we will be starting a little bit before 10. So try to arrive early so we can start a little bit before 10 in the morning. May God bless you and keep you all.